My mission begins at the U.S. Army's Fort Gregg Adams, a few hours south of D.C. Once on base, I make my way over to a one-of-a-kind museum, which chronicles the long history of women's service in our military. Tracy?
Hi, Josh. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, too.
Welcome to the United States Army Women's Museum.
I am thrilled to be here because I have a lot to learn. And I think a lot of people don't know enough about the Women's Army Corps. So tell me, who were the WACs?
So the WACs were the first women to serve in the Army with full military status.
Okay.
It's an amazing story. But I think to understand the WACs, we need to go back to the beginning, to the American Revolution. So let's head this way.
Let's go, all the way back. Come on.
Really, since the birth of the Army in 1775, women have been finding ways to serve.
And so in those early days, how are they serving?
They're serving in very logistical roles, important work for the Army. They're serving as laundresses, they're serving as cooks, as nurses, they're foraging. Then we see a big change around World War I.
Okay.
A great example is the Hello Girls.
The Hello Girls were French-speaking American women brought overseas to help with communications during World War I. It was the first time women had been used in forward service.
That's really going to lay the groundwork for what's going to happen in World War II with our Women's Army Corps.
American woman power is a reserve that can win this war.
The Women's Army Corps was founded in 1942, 5 months after Pearl Harbor, to bolster the war effort by enlisting women to work as cooks, drivers, and offer communications and medical support.
The original call goes out for 1,000 WACs, and over 30,000 women apply.
So right out of the gate, 30,000 women apply to this.
Yes, and the numbers are going to grow exponentially throughout the war.
Seeing these women in these uniforms strikes kind of an emotional note for me. My grandmother, who was British, served in the UK equivalent of this, the Women's Royal Army Corps. And we have this photo of her in uniform. And during the 40s in the UK, she was doing transfusions for soldiers and supporting the war effort.
And the British women were actually an inspiration for what was going to happen in America. Much of the Women's Army Corps was replicated on the service of women like your grandmother.
There we go. Nice work, Grammy. Appreciate it. Grammy, yeah.
Good job, Grammy.
Good job, Grammy. All right, that's amazing. That is incredible to hear. Over the course of the war, 150,000 WACs were stationed all over the world, from Europe to Africa to the Manhattan Project. It was at the Accra Air Base in what is now Ghana that the 18 WACs were stationed before their doomed flight to London.
So Josh, welcome to the archives.
Wow, look at all of this material. This is incredible. This is the official WAC archive of the crash and the women who tragically perished in it. May I?
Yes, please.
So we've got literal headline news here. Army plane 18 WACs lost. 18 WACs missing on plane trip in Africa. Air and surface craft are searching for a missing plane carrying 18 WACs and a crew of 3. The WACs are the first ever reported lost overseas. This must have been a seismic event for the Women's Army Corps.
It really was. It was the largest loss of life for the Women's Army Corps, all in one event. This was national news as well as news in all of the hometowns of these women.
And yet so few people know this story today.
Right, I agree, but we have to remember that there was a lot going on still at this time in the war. So Germany had just surrendered, but we had a big fight left in the Pacific.
With Germany's surrender, the WACs had the opportunity to go home, but many chose to stay on to support a devastated Europe or be redeployed to assignments in the Pacific. The fateful flight in question was scheduled to travel from Accra Base, with refueling and personnel stops in Liberia, Senegal, Morocco, and France before heading to the UK. There were 4 C-47 aircraft leaving the base, but only 3 of them made it. Are these photos of the women from the crash?
Yes, in fact, here we have the majority of Squadron D stationed in Accra.
Wow. So these are all the women that are stationed over there. So presumably the 18 WACs who died in this one crash are in this photo.
Yes.
Wow. So we have here Corporal Velma H. Holden and her colleagues Private Flossie Flannery, that is the greatest name ever, I love that, Doris Cooper, and Frida Friend was on the plane.
Right, so PFC freed a friend and her husband got married in the States. He ends up being stationed in Accra, and then later she's sent to Accra, so they were there together. And then she was on this plane that ended up crashing on the way to London.
And he found out about it back on the base?
Yes, he did.
Oh, that's just terrible. And her colleague is Helen F. Rizal, who joined the WAC to take the place of a brother, Lieutenant Richard Rizal, a pilot whose plane was shot down off of Italy in '43. So she's serving because she has a brother who's already been lost.
Exactly, so she actually does enlist after her brother is missing in action. So currently, they are both on the MIA register.
Wow. And who's this?
So this is actually Helen Roselle here and Odessa Hollingsworth, two of the women who were killed in the plane crash.
Look at these two women just hanging out on the beach in West Africa. What a cool photo this is.
So they're trailblazers, and
Yeah.
they're women in the Army. They're serving their nation, and they're also on a great adventure.
That's right. And as to this plane, it really just seems like it vanishes off the face of the earth. You look at the news report and it says the plane was last reported over British West Africa about 150 miles west of Accra, and then nothing.
So they had a normal takeoff. They did their first check-in, and then there was a frantic Mayday call.
But in the Mayday, the pilot doesn't say what's happening.
Does not identify the problem. So then a major search and rescue operation is launched, and it goes on for over a week. They send out planes, they send out ships, and they found absolutely nothing. No human remains, no debris. So it is a true mystery.
And a mystery, I hope, that can be solved.
And we hope so too. This is an important story, and we would be very happy to bring resolution and recognition to the service of these women.
Okay, so this is our big geographical marker.
That's right. So a half mile off this point is supposedly where our aircraft crashed.
And we can see a fishing village in here. This is where eyewitnesses were.
Someone from this village flagged down American searchers to say that they witnessed the crash.
Boy, it's so tantalizing to think that somewhere around us, underneath us, this wreck exists. It's just waiting.
It's just waiting, and we're the first ones to come looking for it since 1945.
And now we just gotta find it.
When the WACs plane went down in this remote area, the Army did their best to conduct a search and rescue operation to find it. They had the same bearing and the same witness statement we do, but we have something that they did not. State-of-the-art 21st century sonar. That tech is brought on board by the remainder of the Project Recover team.
Josh, you remember Layla Character from Micronesia?
Of course, great to see you.
Yeah, you too.
I wanted to also introduce Eric White. He's our senior engineer.
Nice to meet you. I assume it's tech time here?
It's tech time.
It's tech time. All right, I've seen this very dangerous looking box before. Should we see what's inside of it?
Yeah.
Yes.
We unpack the team's precious cargo.
Okay, here we go.
It is something to behold.
Okay, the Beast. We call this an AUV. This is an autonomous underwater vehicle. We're not towing this thing. It's going off on its own.
Correct.
And once we're in the water, Layla, what's the mission?
Once we're in the water, we've pre-programmed it so it knows where to go. It's basically going to follow a mow the lawn pattern where it's collecting data up and down these rows. It sends out a beam of sound. That beam of sound hits the ground. If the ground is hard, the beam of sound appears bright. If it's soft, it appears very dark. So when we look at the image, we'd be looking for something very bright for an aircraft because it would be hard.
Right.
The most identifiable features likely to survive the crash of the WACs C-47 would have been the twin Pratt & Whitney engines, but parts of the hull and tail sections were constructed of steel as well and may also be preserved.
So once this is in the water, how are you communicating with it? How are you getting data as to its position?
So when it's in the water, we communicate through our Ranger system. The vehicle will send us information every minute.
You don't actually get the sonar data, right? You actually have to recover the unit for that?
Correct.
Okay, great. Well, let's get in the water. Okay, walking it over. Ready?
Yep.
Okay, she's in the water. She's away.
We deploy the AUV, aptly nicknamed Hunter. And in moments, it dives beneath the surface and begins its scan, systematically covering the pre-programmed search zone. It's like a Roomba, if your Roomba cost $750,000 and could map 100 feet below your floor. It's going to take 6 long hours for Hunter to cover the grid we've given it, which is based on 80-year-old intel. We'd love to confirm that this fishing village is the same one investigators encountered after the crash, to know if we've sent our AUV searching in the right spot. So Colin has an idea to get more recent data.
I say we head ashore, go to the village, see if we can find anyone, fishermen, older folks who may have information.
Thank you for taking a few minutes to talk with us. I appreciate it. Did you grow up here in Monagaga?
Yes, I was born here, and I have lived here my entire life.
In 1945, an American airplane was flying just off the village here and crashed.
Do you remember a plane crash here?
I didn't see it, but I remember older people here talking about it. They said something had crashed into the water.
So you heard about the story. It was something people were talking about.
Yes,
Something crashed into the water.
that's right. A huge plane just flew off the point and went in.
Do you know if anything washed ashore, like wreckage and metal and things like that?
No, nothing. It was like it never happened. It just disappeared into the ocean.
Nothing. Thank you very much for talking with us. Merci beaucoup.
The village elder has confirmed that we are searching in the right place. And further, the fact that no debris or remains washed ashore after the event may mean the plane went down relatively intact, which could make it easier for the sonar to image.
Stand by, I'm gonna swim over to it. Looks heavily encrusted, definitely solid. I think this is natural mark. Yeah, this looks like a monolith, a huge rock. Offside, it is not man-made. This is geological. Large rock sticking up off the bottom, really weird. It's like a tower sticking up.
Copy that, natural feature, over.
I was hoping this was the tail of the airplane. Me too, you can just imagine it in the darkness. Hey Josh, we have pretty bad conditions here. We should head back. Copy that, and I've only got a couple minutes of bottom time left at this depth, so we'll make our way back to the shot line and ascend. Yeah, roger that. Okay, let's get out of here. All right, ascending now.
Whew. All right, that was a heartbreaker.
Yeah, it was.
You know, first of all, horrible visibility.
Terrible.
Terrible. But then out of the mist, you just see this dark shape rising up.
Yeah.
But definitely not a plane.
We return to our vessel off the coast of Monagaga without our C-47. When the Army searched here in 1945, there was almost no infrastructure, and little has changed today. This is a supremely hard place to investigate, which is why nobody has in 80 years. And that in itself is why we're here.